It is interesting though that in, we'll call your genre progressive metal. It's
Yeah.
interesting that in the so-called progressive world, I feel like there are some pretty rigid expectations and boundaries.
Isn't it a weird irony that
Right. It's
you
kind of a
almost,
conservative genre.
it can be, yeah. I feel that there are so many expectations of, or prejudice is the wrong word, but people expect things to be a certain way, and when they're not, they get pissed.
Yes.
And that is wild. Surely progressive music should be whatever the hell that band wants to do.
That's the whole point of it, right?
It should be, yeah. But
Like, if you want to write a straightforward 2.5 minute pop song, that should be okay. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
It does. Or if you want to write a 15-minute long epic, that's okay too. And you could do both.
I think it should be part of the scene, but like you say, I think it's the case with a lot of heavy music, though. Maybe we're all squished into little niches and we become quite protective of that. I guess you have to ask yourself the question: why do people love something, and what happens when they do love something intensely? Maybe that's the reason why things can get quite rigid, or you end up getting more and more niche sometimes.
So I think I've read about this quite a bit. I read some studies about this. It's pretty interesting. It has become more and more apparent to me that in the world of metal, especially like the more progressive sort of technical branches of it, what a big role autism plays. Because
holy shit! So
I'm not joking. I'm not putting it down.
No.
Like, for real.
We've had so many deep discussions about this. Members of families, like people's kids, have been diagnosed.
Yeah.
And also, we're sat in a room thinking, I know it's difficult to self-diagnose, but there's some unusual divergent attitudes in this room.
For sure.
Within the band. And it's very interesting, the people that you meet some people that you think, oh, I hope that person has like the perspective they need to get around life.
Yeah.
Because they're gonna hurt a lot of people without realizing, or they're going to
I
be
certainly have.
Yeah,
which is basically like what I said about the concept. That's what I realize is, like, it doesn't work for me to be myself.
I get you.
That the world does not reward that. And I'm not saying that's right or wrong. It just is what it is. Like, that doesn't work for me. And, I talked to my psychiatrist about it, and I asked, took a little test, and he's like, yeah, you might be a little bit on the spectrum. It's not, doesn't seem to be getting in the way of your life too much. So I wouldn't worry about it. But once I realized that about myself, I started seeing it in other people. There's been some studies about this, but basically, like, do you know the term stimming?
Please explain.
I might do a bad job of explaining it, but for people on the spectrum, like, when they do things like, fiddle with something or whatever, but it can be like it's a sensory thing. And so for a lot of people on the spectrum, like, listening to really complex technical music is a form of stimming. And I thought about that back when I used to write code. I would listen to like super brutal death metal for like hours while I was writing code, because it actually calmed my brain down.
Fascinating, isn't it? Because my brain is at its calmest when the situation is fucked up.
Right.
Like, I'm literally, if things are all falling to crap, that's when I'm kind of in the zone. When everything's working and everything's peaceful. I mean, this is an example of anxiety more than anything, but does stem from the fact that there's a masking happening.
Yes.
Because you've learned to cope with scenarios, and you've learned to hide this because people don't appreciate that there's a chaos inside that isn't shown on the outside. And we talk about this with our mask. Like, my partners have had no idea of the crap that's going on in my head, because I've just been, that's how it's
probably better if they don't
cope. I mean, it's the intrusive thoughts are going to get you into trouble someday. But it's only recently that I've been okay with sharing those things. And that's part of the process, I think, is letting it come out in stories, letting it come out in music, and hopefully encouraging other people to understand themselves. They don't need to share it. They just need to learn. Don't look at yourself in the mirror because that's judgmental, but just be okay with the things and don't allow them to become poisonous, negative. Understand that you're not perfect, and it's all right to understand the things that you've done in the past that weren't you being a bad person.
Right.
You were dealing with a different reality to somebody else in that same scenario, and that's how you behaved. I think you kind of lose a lot of shame, which is a horrible, horrible thing. It's like a stain upon your memories that colors everything, and it can to be able to let that go from having an effect upon your contemporary world is vitally important. You can still feel it, but not letting it affect you in the same way, not letting it reach out from those dark moments and literally have hands around your throat or cause you to change the way you're doing things. If you can realize that and be okay with how it affected you, that's a really cool thing, because it just gives you, it's not a magic fix, but it is, it's part of the fight, that it's the weapons you now have to fight to keep you on your path, as opposed to walking into a gunfight with just your fists, which I'll be honest, man, it feels like that sometimes.
Every day. I used to think I was an asshole because a lot of people thought I was an asshole. You know what I mean? In a situation. But what I realized is that my brain just literally works different from other people, and I was watching a different movie than they were.
That's
Do you know what I mean?
Your perception of things was altered.
Yeah.
Or your understanding of things.
And it wasn't different. That I was wrong or they were wrong.
No.
We were just watching different movies and reacting accordingly.
Totally. Is that not one of the issues that we're having to deal with so much now, is that the focus is upon not understanding that,
right.
Thinking that things are so diopposed from each other,
right.
Like, but I'm right. I mean, the only truth is that we all have different opinions in that respect. So it's a real struggle, man. And I guess that's some of the strong emotions that we're experiencing now, and the things that have inspired TesseracT to jump into that weird world of looking at ourselves instead of looking at society. I think previous albums were more almost us being judgmental, whereas this album,
well, it's easier, right?
Yeah, I mean, but it is the struggle.
Much easier to say it's their problem.
Yeah, or to go, oh, there's something wrong there. Like, maybe I was wearing some glasses that made me think there was something wrong there. Yeah, there could be something wrong there, but why am I feeling this?
Right,
why
exactly.
am I thinking that? I think that's where we're at now. I could have done with that 20 years ago, though.
Tell me about it. Yeah. Well, better late than never, right?
Yeah, it's cool. It made some fun art along the way.